Today, we're going to go over 10 hacks and tips to make your life easier. Because riding motorcycles isn't all fun and games.
Only about 69% of the time, in fact. The rest is filled with bike work, cleaning, and more bike work. And if that doesn't work, at least you will have been entertained for a few minutes, because after all, who trusts hack videos these days anyway? Have you ever stripped an Allen head bolt like this? Don't lie, we all have. And to make it worse, it's usually flush or sunken into a bolt hole, so you can't grab it with vice grips either. Well, if you're in a rush, or just can't be bothered to get the right tool for the job, like most of us, grab a set of Torx bits instead. Preferably a set you don't like, because if you find one slightly bigger than the Allen head used to be, you should be able to tap the Torx bit into the stripped out hexagon just enough to get the teeth to bite into the soft metal and loosen the bolt. Of course, that bolt is now a throwaway, but that's a problem for another day. I recently suffered from a rusty chain, and despite still experiencing bouts of PTSD every time it rains, I learned to work smarter, not harder. A chain brush is useless, don't waste your money. A wire brush is more effective, but could damage your O-rings if you're not careful. Fancy chemicals are pointless too. But I bet you already have a can of WD-40 and some steel wool in a cupboard somewhere. And drenching your chain in WD-40, letting it soak for 5 minutes, and then scrubbing it off with the steel wool does the same job, if not better than the previous methods, for half the effort and practically free. The cheapest way to fix spongy feeling brakes is to bleed your lines of any air. The only part I hate is having to work with brake fluid, since it is corrosive, so it's the last stuff you want to get on your precious bike. And for some reason, the end of the tube you bleed into is always the most dangerous, and seems to enjoy flinging brake fluid around the garage when you least expect it. So if brake fluid hates you too, save an empty Coke bottle for next time. Then cut a slit into the cap and shove the end of your tube into it. Now when the bottle inevitably falls over, or you accidentally kick it, the hose won't come out and the fluid is sealed in there. You could even half fill the bottle with some water so that the weight helps to keep it upright. But if your brakes are still spongy after bleeding, it might be time for some magic. The day before riding, cable tie the brake lever back to the handlebar and leave it overnight. The next morning, cut the cable tie and slowly release the lever. The lever should now feel firmer. There are even some pros that do this, but even after a lot of research, everyone seems to have their own opinion on why it works. Hence why I consider it magic rather than science. Some believe the pressurized fluid helps coax the bubbles to the top of the line. Then when you release the lever in the morning, those bubbles can make their way into the reservoir and out of the fluid. It might be a mystery, but don't knock a free brake fix until you try it. However, next time you wash your bike, squash a tennis ball underneath each tire.
Now, I can at least explain how this hack works. I just can't justify why you'd actually do it.
The theory is simple. Instead of the garden hose getting snagged under your bike's wheels when you're rinsing it off, bringing you to an abrupt halt, the hose pipe can now slide along the soft, furry tennis ball rather than get trapped under the sticky rubber. The downside is that it takes just as long to locate your balls and jam them under your tires as it does to just backtrack with a hose and get enough slack to continue your journey around the bike. But the upside is that it works with paddock stands too, or even with power leads and air compressor hoses. So maybe if you're into tennis, this is the hack you've been searching for. If you know what this is, then chances are you hate it. This is the official GoPro microphone adapter that you need if you aspire to be the next great motovlogger. The issue is that it's almost as big as the camera itself and has to plug directly into the GoPro. And just letting it dangle out in the wind will probably lead to microphone, camera, and helmet damage. The best solution I've found is hook and loop. It's neater than duct tape, less permanent than glue, and cheaper than a cage that has a built-in spot for it. I just wouldn't recommend white Velcro in hindsight. And speaking of dirty helmets, let's go over some helmet cleaning tips. If you just start rubbing the splattered bugs off your visor with a wet cloth, those crusty critters will scratch your visor. It's a good idea to run a cloth under hot water and drape it over your visor. Let it sit there for about 10 minutes while the hot, damp cloth softens the bugs and lets you wipe them off easier and without scratching your window to the world. But cleaning the inside of your helmet is significantly more awkward, mainly because we have to come here. The baby aisle. I know it smells funny, but hang in there because all we need is their shampoo. You see, helmet padding is as soft as a baby's bum, so it only makes sense that we use a dash of baby shampoo in our water to clean the padding. Well, the real reason is that baby shampoo has gentle chemicals. It's petroleum-free, alcohol-free, sulfate-free, and fun-free, so it won't damage the padding, and it has a subtle odor designed to not upset a baby, so you won't have any conflicting smells the next time a two-stroke passes you. Cable-operated clutches require occasional adjustment as the cable stretches and clutch plates wear. But if you've ever tried to turn one of these adjusters that hasn't moved in years and is seized in place, you might consider just buying a new bike instead. The narrow width makes them impossible to grasp, and the rough texture makes your fingers bleed. But there is an easier way. This cutout might be there to get the cable out when it needs replacing, but it's also the perfect notch to slide a flathead screwdriver into and get some leverage to get a crusty adjuster ring moving without stripping your fingerprints. Plus, it makes a fun noise. I lose my bike's key a lot. And it's always in the last place I look. In the rear seat keyhole, of course. It's the motorcycle equivalent of the remote between the couch cushions. Well, if you've ever replaced your bike's chain, you might have the perfect solution lying around, because most chains come with two master link options, meaning whichever option you didn't use will have an outer plate with pins like this, and they make the perfect key hanger. So you have somewhere official to keep your bike's key. But anyway, let me know which hack is your favorite and share this video with a friend who needs to see it. Subscribe for more tips and hacks, and I'll see you on the next ride.